Unexpected exposure. Melody Jenkins dabbed her brush against the canvas, adding final touches to the commissioned landscape that would pay this month's rent. The small gallery where she worked part-time was quiet on Wednesday afternoons, allowing her to use the back room for her own projects when no customers needed assistance. "Almost done?" Marco, the gallery owner, poked his head through the doorway. "Just about." Melody tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, leaving a smudge of blue paint on her temple. "Mrs. Thornton wanted more depth in the tree line." Marco nodded approvingly. "Your best work yet. You know, you should be showing your own pieces, not just painting what others request." Melody smiled but said nothing. Her personal work, raw, emotional pieces that reflected her complicated childhood, remained stacked against her apartment wall, seen only by her roommate and her cat. The commissioned landscapes and portraits paid bills. Her real art was too intimate to share. Her phone buzzed with a notification, probably Sarah asking if she should pick up dinner on her way home. Instead, she saw a text from her roommate with a link. "OMG, Mel, you're trending. Call me." Confused, Melody opened the link to find a video of herself from yesterday, the moment she'd turned around at the coffee shop to find her father standing there after 8 years of silence. The video captured her shock, her tears, and the quiet intensity of their conversation. Someone had filmed the entire raw reunion and posted it online, where it had quickly gone viral. The caption read, "Watch this artist's emotional reunion with father she thought was dead. Tears in public, family drama." Her stomach lurched. The video had over 2 million views already. By closing time, 3 different entertainment blogs had run stories speculating about her identity. By morning, paparazzi waited outside her apartment building. By Friday, they'd discovered her connection to famous architect James Jenkins, her father, whose high-profile projects and messy divorce from her mother had briefly been tabloid fodder years ago. "Melody, did your father abandon you? Were you estranged? How does it feel to reconnect with him? Is it true you're working on a tell-all art exhibition about your family?" Cameras flashed as she tried to leave for work, reporters inventing narratives about her life that bore no resemblance to reality. The small, meaningful reconnection with her father had been twisted into something unrecognizable. By Sunday evening, Melody was desperate for escape. Sarah had gone to her boyfriend's to avoid the chaos, and the constant doorbell ringing and shouted questions through her apartment door were becoming unbearable. At midnight, she slipped out the service entrance with a small backpack, planning to stay with her friend Tessa across town until things calmed down. But 2 photographers spotted her and gave chase. Panicking, Melody ran through unfamiliar streets in the exclusive Hillcrest neighborhood, turning randomly until she found herself facing an imposing iron gate, partially concealed by hedges. A narrow gap between the gate and wall offered just enough space to slip through. Without thinking twice, she squeezed through onto the private property. The flash of cameras disappeared behind her as she caught her breath, realizing too late she had just trespassed onto someone's estate. The expansive grounds stretched before her, illuminated by subtle landscape lighting that revealed a stunning modern home in the distance. Before she could retreat, security lights flooded the area. A tall figure emerged from the house, walking purposefully toward her. "That's far enough," called a deep voice. "This is private property." Melody froze, heart pounding as Gabriel Winters, the notoriously private tech genius whose face she recognized from rare news photos, stepped into view. His expression was guarded, his stance defensive. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "I didn't mean to. The photographers—" Recognition flickered across his face. "You're the artist, the one they're hunting this week." Melody nodded, suddenly aware of how she must appear, disheveled, terrified, and trespassing on a billionaire's property at midnight. Gabriel studied her for a long moment before his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Come inside," he said finally, "before they figure out where you disappeared to." Reluctant sanctuary Melody hesitated at the threshold of Gabriel Winters's modernist mansion. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a minimalist interior bathed in soft light, all clean lines and purposeful spaces that seemed to reflect the man himself. "You can stay until morning," Gabriel said, his tone businesslike as he deactivated the security system. "By then, I'll have arranged transportation to wherever you need to go." Thank you, Melody replied, clutching her small backpack to her chest. I really didn't plan to trespass. I just needed to escape the cameras for a moment. Gabriel's expression remained unreadable as he led her through the sprawling main floor. The guest suite is this way. There are clothes in the closet that should fit you. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. His clinical efficiency was almost unsettling. This wasn't generosity or compassion, it was problem-solving. She was simply another situation to manage. Do you always take in strays who jump your fence? Melody asked, attempting to lighten the mood. No. The single word hung between them before he elaborated. The media circus turns people into commodities. I understand that better than most. Something in his voice, a subtle note of bitterness, made Melody look at him more carefully. Gabriel Winters stood over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and the kind of fitness that spoke of discipline rather than vanity. His dark hair was cut precisely, and his steel-gray eyes seemed to evaluate everything with calculating precision. Yet beneath his composed exterior, she sensed an unexpected weariness. The infamous Gabriel Winters, she said softly. Tech visionary and digital recluse. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. You know who I am? Everyone knows Horizon Technologies, and that its founder hasn't given an interview in 4 years. 3 years? 8 months, he corrected automatically. Not that I'm counting. The ghost of a smile touched his lips, transforming his face for just a moment before disappearing behind his careful mask. In the guest suite, Melody showered away the day's tension, borrowed a simple t-shirt and shorts from the closet, and ventured back to the kitchen, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. To her surprise, Gabriel sat at the island counter, tablet in hand and a cup of tea steaming before him. Couldn't sleep either? She asked. He glanced up, seeming to assess whether her presence required his engagement. After a moment, he closed his tablet. I rarely sleep more than 4 hours. That doesn't sound healthy. It's efficient. Melody opened the refrigerator, finding it surprisingly well stocked. Mind if I make something? I haven't eaten since breakfast. Gabriel gestured permission, watching with unexpected interest as she gathered ingredients. Within minutes, the kitchen filled with the aroma of a simple pasta dish. You cook, he observed. My mom worked nights when I was growing up, Melody explained, stirring the sauce. I either learned to cook or survived on cereal. Your father wasn't around. It wasn't a question. Melody tensed slightly. Not after I was 10. Hence the dramatic reunion video that's ruined my life. Gabriel studied her for a long moment. The public's interest is arbitrary. They'll move on to someone else's trauma soon enough. Is that supposed to be comforting? Melody asked, but found herself smiling despite the bluntness of his assessment. It's reality, he replied, but his tone had softened. May I? He gestured to the pan as she finished cooking. Melody served 2 plates, and to her surprise, Gabriel remained at the counter, tasting the simple meal with thoughtful appreciation. This is good, he said, sounding almost surprised. You're talented. At cooking pasta? The bar must be low around here. At creating, he clarified. I looked you up after you arrived. Your commissioned work is technically skilled, but your personal paintings... He paused, choosing his words carefully. They communicate something authentic. Melody stared at him, unsettled by his research and stunned by his insight. You found my personal portfolio? How? Finding information is what I do. He met her eyes directly. Your work deserves to be seen. The compliment hung in the air between them, unexpectedly personal from this guarded man. Morning arrived with news that the paparazzi had tracked her to the neighborhood, but hadn't yet identified Gabriel's estate. Over breakfast, his demeanor shifted from merely tolerant to quietly concerned. They're persistent, he observed, scrolling through news alerts. The story has evolved. They're now connecting you to actor Devin Reese because you were photographed at the same charity event last year. What? Melody nearly choked on her toast. I catered that event. I've never even met him. Gabriel's expression darkened. They're creating a narrative that sells. Truth is irrelevant. Something in his tone suggested personal experience with such fabrications. I should go before I cause you more trouble, Melody said, standing to clear her plate. Gabriel caught her wrist gently, the first time he'd initiated physical contact. The touch sent an unexpected warmth through her arm. "Stay," he said, then seemed surprised by his own request. More formally, he added, "at least until the situation de-escalates. I have resources to manage this." Growing intimacy. 3 weeks into Melody's stay at Gabriel's estate, the routines they'd established felt surprisingly natural. Each morning, she would find him in the kitchen, having already been awake for hours, a fresh pot of coffee waiting beside her favorite mug. Each evening, they would share dinner, sometimes prepared by his chef, but increasingly often cooked by Melody herself, with Gabriel tentatively assisting, learning techniques with the same focused intensity he brought to his technological innovations. "You're holding the knife too tightly," Melody instructed, stepping behind him as he chopped vegetables. "Like this." She placed her hand over his, adjusting his grip, acutely aware of his broad shoulders and the subtle cologne that seemed part of his skin rather than something applied. Gabriel went still at her touch, then relaxed incrementally. "I'm more accustomed to writing code than chopping onions," he admitted, his voice lower than usual. "Coding is just another kind of recipe," Melody replied, stepping away to hide the flush that had risen to her cheeks. These moments of proximity were becoming increasingly distracting. Later that evening, they settled in his living room, the wall of windows revealing a spectacular city lights panorama. Gabriel had gradually relaxed his formal demeanor, trading his perpetual button-down shirts for more casual wear, though Melody suspected the simple t-shirts probably cost more than her monthly rent. "My legal team has made progress," Gabriel said, swirling a glass of wine. "They've issued cease and desist orders to 3 publications that connected you romantically, to Devin Reese. The fabricated relationship story should disappear from reputable sources within days." Melody sighed gratefully. "I can't believe you've done all this. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me." Gabriel's expression grew distant. "I understand the damage false narratives can cause." Sensing an opening in his usually impenetrable defenses, Melody ventured carefully, "Is that why you disappeared from public view?" "False stories?" Gabriel was silent so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he set down his glass. 3 years ago, I was engaged to Elise Warner." "The philanthropist?" Melody asked, recalling vague headlines. "Among other things. What the public didn't know was that while planning our wedding, she was selling proprietary Horizon technology to our competitors." His voice remained steady, but his fingers tensed around the stem of his glass. "When I discovered it, I ended the relationship immediately. Within days, stories appeared claiming I had emotional problems, that I was controlling and paranoid." "That's awful." "It was calculated," Gabriel continued. "She knew that responding publicly would require revealing corporate secrets, potentially tanking Horizon's stock before an important product launch. So I said nothing, let the narrative stand, and decided the public didn't deserve access to my life anymore." Melody moved closer on the sofa, instinctively reaching for his hand. To her surprise, he didn't pull away. "You shouldn't have had to disappear," she said softly. His eyes met hers, vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. "Neither should you." Something shifted between them in that moment. A boundary crossed, a wall lowered. When Gabriel reached to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingered against her cheek. "Melody," he began, his voice husky with emotion he rarely displayed. Her phone buzzed loudly, breaking the moment. She checked it reluctantly. "It's Marco from the gallery," she explained. "I've been sending him photos of my new work, and he—" Her voice trailed off as she read the message. "He wants to give me a solo exhibition. Says my new paintings show an emotional depth he's never seen from me before." Gabriel's smile was genuine. "He's right. Your work has evolved remarkably." "Because of you," Melody said without thinking. "Being here, feeling safe, talking with you, it's changed how I paint." Their gazes held for a long moment before Gabriel stood abruptly. "I have something to show you." He led her to a part of the house she hadn't yet explored, using his fingerprint to unlock a door that revealed a staircase leading down to what appeared to be a bunker. "Your secret lair," Melody joked nervously. Gabriel's expression remained serious as they descended into what turned out to be an immense basement workspace. Holographic displays illuminated the center of the room, showing a three-dimensional rendering of what appeared to be a compact water purification system. "This is what I've been working on at night," he explained. "A portable filtration device that can be mass-produced for under $20, capable of providing clean water in disaster zones or developing regions." Melody circled the hologram, taking in the elegant simplicity of the design. "It's beautiful," she said honestly. "It was my passion project before—" He hesitated. "Before everything with Elise. Afterward, I shelved it, focused solely on profitable ventures that wouldn't require public engagement. But you've started again." Gabriel nodded, watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You reminded me there are things worth emerging for." The admission hung between them, weighted with meaning. "Gabriel," Melody whispered, stepping closer. This time when he reached for her, there was no interruption. His hand curved around the nape of her neck, drawing her gently toward him. The kiss began tentatively, a question being asked and answered between them. When Melody's arms slid around his waist, Gabriel deepened the kiss, years of self-imposed isolation dissolving in the warmth of her response. Later, lying in his bed with her head resting on his chest, Melody traced patterns on his skin while Gabriel ran his fingers through her hair with unexpected tenderness. "I never planned for this," he murmured against her temple. Melody smiled against his skin. "Neither did I. But I'm not sorry. Nor am I." He tipped her chin up, studying her face with the focused attention he brought to everything that mattered to him. "You've brought color back into a world I had deliberately made grayscale." The following weeks unfolded in a haze of discovery, both of each other and themselves. Gabriel gradually shared more of his humanitarian projects, inviting Melody's perspective on designs and implementation. She found her painting evolving further, incorporating elements of hope and connection that had been absent from her earlier work. What neither of them anticipated was that their private sanctuary couldn't remain private forever. As Melody's exhibition date approached, requiring her occasional presence in the outside world, they grew careless. A dinner at a small restaurant, a walk through a quiet park at dusk, his hand clasping hers as if it belonged there. When Gabriel's phone buzzed at 5 a.m. one morning, the tension in his body as he read the message instantly woke Melody from where she lay curled against him. "What's wrong?" she asked, suddenly alert. Without speaking, Gabriel turned the phone toward her. On the screen was a grainy but unmistakable photo of them embracing outside the gallery 2 days earlier. Beneath a glaring headline, "Reclusive billionaire's new muse. Is she after his fortune or his secrets?" "Public scrutiny. They're calling me a gold digger," Melody said quietly, scrolling through article after article on her tablet. 3 days had passed since the first photos emerged, and the media narrative had quickly crystallized into something ugly and familiar. Gabriel paced the length of his home office, phone pressed to his ear as he spoke tersely with his PR team. His normally fluid movements had become rigid with tension, his jaw set in a hard line that Melody had never seen before. "No statements," he said firmly into the phone. "No comments. Nothing." Hanging up, he turned to Melody with an expression that seemed carefully controlled. "My board of directors has called an emergency meeting. Apparently, my public reemergence and questionable personal associations are causing investor concern." "Questionable associations?" Melody repeated hollowly. "That would be me." Gabriel's expression softened as he crossed to where she sat. "This will blow over. My company has weathered worse." But something in his voice lacked conviction, and when his phone buzzed again, the flash of frustration that crossed his face told her more than his reassuring words. The headlines grew more intrusive with each passing day. Paparazzi camped outside the gallery where Melody's exhibition was being prepared, forcing Marco to hire security. Anonymous sources emerged with fabricated stories about her calculated pursuit of Gabriel's fortune. Someone leaked her financial records, highlighting her student loan debt and modest bank account as supposed evidence of her mercenary motives. Unknown. Artist seduces tech titan. inside her scheme to climb the social ladder. Gold digger or genius? How Melody Jenkins infiltrated Billionaire's fortress. Sources reveal Jenkins researched Winters for months before accidental meeting. Worst of all were the connections being drawn between Melody and Gabriel's ex-fiancé. Side-by-side photos comparing them appeared online with analysis of how Melody had supposedly studied Elise's style and mannerisms to appeal to Gabriel's type. Gabriel's company stock dropped 15 points in a week. The sanctuary they had created began to feel like a prison. Gabriel spent long hours locked in video conferences with his executive team. When they were together, his phone constantly interrupted with urgent messages, each one drawing him further into himself, rebuilding the walls that had only recently begun to lower. At night, they still reached for each other with desperate intensity, as if physical connection could compensate for the emotional distance growing between them. But afterward, Gabriel would lie awake, his mind visibly churning with calculations and strategies that he no longer shared. One evening, Melody found him in his basement workspace, staring at financial projections that glowed red across the holographic display. "Is it that bad?" she asked quietly. Gabriel didn't immediately answer, his expression remote in the blue light of the display. "A competitor is using the distraction to attempt a hostile acquisition of one of our subsidiaries, our most promising medical technology division." Melody stepped closer, reaching for his hand. "Gabriel, I'm so sorry. This is all because of me." "No." His denial came quickly, but he didn't meet her eyes. "It's because I let my guard down. I knew better." The word stung more than he likely intended. "So this us was a mistake?" Finally, Gabriel looked at her, conflict evident in his expression. "That's not what I meant, but something had shifted." He didn't reach for her that night. The final blow came the morning of Melody's exhibition opening. A tabloid published an exclusive interview with her father, James Jenkins, who claimed Gabriel was financing Melody's art career as part of their relationship arrangement. "He never gave that interview," Melody said, hands shaking as she read the fabricated quotes. "He would never say these things." Gabriel's expression hardened as he scanned the article. "They've connected him to Elise, claiming they've known each other for years through architectural projects." "That's impossible," Melody insisted. "My father would have told me." The slight hesitation before Gabriel responded was barely perceptible. "Of course." But the seed of doubt had been planted, and Melody felt it growing between them like a physical presence. That evening, while preparing for the exhibition, she found Gabriel in his office speaking with Dominic Vega, the chairman of his board. "The optics are destructive, Gabriel," Dominic was saying, his voice carrying through the partially open door. "The company can't withstand another scandal, especially one that mirrors the Elise situation so closely." "This is entirely different," Gabriel replied, his tone controlled but tight. "Is it?" "We have another leak investigation underway. Proprietary information about Project Oasis appeared on a competitor's server yesterday. The timing..." "Melody has no access to those systems." "Perhaps not directly," Dominic persisted. "But the parallels are concerning. The board is unanimous on this. Either she goes or we call for a vote of no confidence." The silence that followed felt endless. Melody stepped back from the door, her heart pounding. When Gabriel emerged minutes later, she was waiting in the living room, already dressed for her exhibition in a simple black dress that now felt like mourning attire. "You heard?" he said. "Not a question." "Enough." Melody's voice remained steady, though her hands trembled. "They think I'm stealing from you." Gabriel's expression was unreadable. "It's corporate politics. They're looking for a scapegoat for the security breach. And I'm the perfect candidate." She took a deep breath. "Just like Elise." His jaw tightened at the comparison. "You're nothing like Elise, aren't I? The evidence seems compelling from the outside. Artist with financial troubles. Billionaire with security vulnerabilities. Leaked corporate secrets." Melody blinked back tears. "Even my father is somehow implicated." "I don't believe you're involved," Gabriel said, but his voice lacked the certainty she desperately needed. "But you can't be sure," she finished for him. The realization broke something inside her. After everything we've shared, there's still that seed of doubt. Melody. I need to go to my exhibition, she interrupted, unable to bear what might come next. I'll have someone collect my things tomorrow. Gabriel didn't try to stop her. The exhibition opening proceeded in a blur. Critics praised her new work, noting the emotional evolution and depth that had emerged in her recent paintings. Marco beamed with pride at the sold-out showing. But Melody moved through the evening like a ghost, smiling automatically and answering questions mechanically. The final painting in the exhibition, the one she had completed just days earlier, depicted a man standing alone at a wall of windows, his silhouette dark against a panorama of lights that seemed both beautiful and isolating. She had titled it simply Sanctuary. A collector purchased it for triple the asking price. Melody returned to Sarah's apartment that night, ignoring the paparazzi who followed her and shouted questions about her breakup with the billionaire. In the days that followed, she declined all interviews and shut down her social media accounts. The gallery fielded her communications while she threw herself into new paintings, darker now, filled with the raw emotion of heartbreak. She didn't try to contact Gabriel, and he made no attempt to reach her. 2 weeks after their separation, Melody was preparing for a meeting with a museum curator interested in her work when Sarah burst into her bedroom, phone in hand. "Mel, you need to see this," she said urgently, thrusting the device toward her. He's live right now. On the screen was Gabriel Winters, standing at a podium before the annual Tech Vision conference, his first public appearance in nearly 4 years. Brave, Heart's Gabriel Winters stood before the audience at the Tech Vision conference, the epitome of controlled confidence in a perfectly tailored suit. Camera flashes illuminated his face as he surveyed the packed auditorium, where the industry's elite had gathered expecting his announcement of Horizon's groundbreaking new medical technology. Instead, he began with words no one anticipated. 4 years ago, I stepped away from the public eye because I believed privacy was the only way to protect what mattered, Gabriel said, his deep voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. Today, I'm breaking my silence because I've learned that sometimes protection requires stepping into the light. In Sarah's apartment, Melody stared at the screen, her heart pounding as Gabriel continued. Many of you have read stories about my personal life recently, he acknowledged. Speculation about my relationship with artist Melody Jenkins has dominated headlines for weeks, including false allegations that she has used our connection to access corporate information. He paused, his expression resolute. I'm here to set the record straight. There has been a security breach at Horizon Technologies. Our investigation has confirmed that the responsible party is Oliver Reed, our former head of development, who was recently passed over for promotion. Gabriel's directness sent ripples through the audience. Mr. Reed has been terminated and legal proceedings are underway. Melody gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. As for Melody Jenkins, Gabriel continued, his voice softening almost imperceptibly, she is an extraordinary artist whose work you should experience firsthand. A woman of integrity who has been unjustly maligned by a media machine that prioritizes sensationalism over truth. The daughter of architect James Jenkins, who, contrary to fabricated reports, has never met my former fiancé and has been a dedicated father despite past challenges. On screen, Gabriel seemed to look directly into the camera, as if he knew Melody would be watching. I've spent 3 years hiding from public scrutiny because I believed that was the only way to protect myself from betrayal. When Melody entered my life, I offered her protection on the same terms. Isolation, secrecy, distance from the world. What I failed to recognize was that true safety doesn't come from walls or security systems. His voice grew more personal, more vulnerable than any public statement he had ever made. It comes from finding someone who sees you clearly and loves you anyway. Someone whose integrity illuminates the darkest corners of distrust. Someone who makes you brave enough to stand in the spotlight and speak your truth. Tears streamed down Melody's face as Gabriel revealed Project Oasis to the stunned audience, the water purification system they had refined together during late nights in his workspace. He announced that Horizon would be open-sourcing the technology. and establishing a foundation to distribute units to regions in need. This project represents what's possible when we allow ourselves to be guided by hope rather than fear, Gabriel concluded. When we choose connection over isolation. As the audience erupted in applause, Melody reached for her coat. "Where are you going?" Sarah asked, though her knowing smile suggested she already understood. "To be brave," Melody replied. The drive to Gabriel's estate felt interminable. When she finally reached the gates, she found them open, waiting for her. Heart pounding, she made her way up the winding driveway to where Gabriel stood beside his car, having clearly just arrived himself. For a moment, they simply looked at each other across the distance. "I saw your speech," Melody said finally, her voice carrying in the evening air. Gabriel took a step toward her. "I meant every word. Even the part about love? Especially that part." Another step closer. "I should have said it before you left. Should have shown you that my trust in you was stronger than my fear." Melody closed more of the distance between them. "I was afraid too. That I'd never be more than a gold digger in the world's eyes. That eventually you'd start to wonder if they were right." Gabriel shook his head. "I know who you are, Melody. I've seen your heart in every brushstroke, heard it in every late-night conversation, felt it in every touch." They stood just inches apart now, close enough that Melody could see the emotion in his eyes. All the carefully constructed walls completely dismantled. "The press will still come after us," she warned softly. "Let them," Gabriel replied, reaching for her hand. "I'm done hiding what matters." When they kissed, it felt like coming home, to a sanctuary built not of walls and security systems, but of trust and courage and love that refused to cower in the shadows. 6 months later, Melody stood before her newest painting at the opening of her museum exhibition. The piece depicted two silhouettes against a dawn sky, no longer isolated behind glass, but standing together in open air, facing the light. Gabriel slipped his arm around her waist, pressing a kiss to her temple as admirers gathered around the striking canvas. "What inspired this piece?" an art critic asked, notebook in hand. Melody exchanged a glance with Gabriel, their private smile communicating volumes. "It's about choosing to be seen," she answered simply. "About finding the courage to step into the spotlight when you find something, someone worth illuminating." Later that night, as they walked hand in hand through the moonlit garden of what was now their shared home, Gabriel stopped beneath the oak tree where they had first begun to lower their guards with each other. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. "Not because of your exhibition success or my stock price recovery, but because of this ordinary Tuesday night, walking in our garden." The ring he held captured the moonlight, a simple band with a stone that seemed to contain its own inner light. "Will you marry me, Melody Jenkins? Not as a billionaire asking an artist, not as headlines or social media fodder, but as a man who never wants to watch another sunset without you beside him." Tears glistened in Melody's eyes as she held out her hand. "Yes," she whispered, not as a viral sensation or a muse, but as a woman who finally found home in the one place she wasn't looking for it. As Gabriel slipped the ring onto her finger, they both knew that the true sanctuary they had built wasn't a place at all, but the brave, resilient love they had created together, strong enough to withstand both shadow and spotlight.